Hello and welcome back to episode number 17 of the Superhero Finder YouTube series. I'm going to get straight in. We're now waiting. I've got Sally with me today. Now, Sally's an amazing person. I've known Sally for about 6 years now, and she's got some amazing messages. Hello and welcome back to the Superhero Finder YouTube series. It's been a little while since the last episode, but it's an absolute corker. This episode is for you if you are a mum, an expectant mum, or anything, you've got kids, and you're wanting to find out how you can wear the different hats, how you can be the best mum you can be, from someone who's had massive experience in not only the fitness industry, her own struggles, her own story, and she just wants to share it with you. So we're going to get right to it. We're waiting at the other side, so let's say hello to Sally. Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 17 of the Superhero Finder series, where I'm speaking to real people and listening to some real stories. So hopefully you can take something away from this, or maybe you can share it with other people. So today I'm joined by Sally. How are you doing today, Sally?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, Matt. Really good.
Perfect. Awesome. As you can see, Sally is the owner of StarFit, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, there we go, advertising, personal training services, and what else do you cover as well?
It's pretty much sort of personal training, but I specialise also in training pre and postnatal mums to be. So that's a really important side of fitness that you don't always get from going to a commercial gym and things like that. So that's sort of my big passion, really. Absolutely.
I remember when I first started as a PT, and it's quite scary when you find out either one of your clients or somebody's asking you, that they're pregnant, what can and can't you do? Because it's, for a lot of people, it's something you might not have been through, or you don't understand the, I suppose, physical processes of that. So what is it that kind of drove you to get into that part of the sector, really?
Basically, everything that I do is based on my own personal experiences. So I started training with a personal trainer about 6.5 years ago, I think it is now. Got engaged, wanted to get in shape for the wedding, usual sort of thing. I'd dabbled in the gym before, but not really done much. Started getting in shape for the wedding, and I absolutely just fell in love with exercise and training. And for me, the end result was, yes, I got in shape for the wedding and I felt great on my wedding day, which was amazing. But I never knew the other side of it, which was like the mental health benefits as well.
Yeah.
And so that really hooked me in. So then after the wedding, continued to train as I had been training in the run-up. All going really well, getting stronger and stronger, feeling amazing. And then I found out I was pregnant with my first little one, Oscar, who is now 3. And then it's like, okay, now what do I do? I feel like everything has to kind of like grind to a halt. And as soon as you say you're pregnant, everyone's just like treating you in there with kid gloves, and you're wrapping you in cotton wool, and you can't actually pregnant, you can't do this because you're pregnant.
Yeah.
And I felt a little bit in limbo. I wanted to keep on training because it kept me on an even keel, mentally, physically. And I'm sure there was a way around it. So I suppose my PT at the time, who gave me some very basic advice, but he wasn't specially trained in it.
Yeah.
So again, I dabbled a little bit in the gym throughout my pregnancy. I did quite a lot of swimming mainly, because I knew that was a safe thing to do. And I had a good pregnancy. I think it definitely, by keeping active, definitely helped me through labour. And then once I'd had Oscar and, a few couple of months, 8 to 12 weeks, sort of recover after that, I was ready to get back into the gym. It's like, okay, where do I start? What can I do? What can't I do? What's safe to do? How far can I push myself?
Yeah.
All of these sorts of questions. And it took me a long time to navigate that and figure out what I could and couldn't do. And I just thought, it's such a big part of what was missing from the gym I was training at. So then as time went on, I eventually decided to become a personal trainer. That was always from the get-go the line that I was going to go down. Because it's so beneficial to just be active and to train in pregnancy, and it's surprising what you can actually still do. You don't need to be as limited as what you think you are. It's just changing technique slightly. You know, if you're used to weightlifting, you can continue to do that, but it's just dropping your weights, making sure you're resting a little bit more, and things like that. And as I'm currently going through my second pregnancy, currently at 16 and a bit weeks, it's been great that I've been able to do an awful lot more training this time around.
Yes.
And felt confident that what I'm doing is safe.
Yeah.
It's helped me mentally 100% on the days when you feel rubbish, morning sickness and all of that. Just been able to get in and do some training, as hard as it is to motivate yourself sometimes,
I can imagine.
Always feel better for it. So it's just such a beneficial thing, physically and mentally.
So you're literally living this story again, aren't you? So you've seen it happen once, and that's the reason why you're, you know, now training other people in it, and now you're living it again, but it's the second time, so you're in a better position to know exactly what you can do. That's awesome.
Definitely, I'm certainly more in tune with my body this time, but now I've had that training and I am qualified in it, is having that confidence, knowing that what I am doing is all right, and knowing how far I can push myself without putting myself at any risk whatsoever. And same also when I'm training my pregnant lady clients, I've got a much better understanding of how it feels training with baby inside from first time round and now second time around. So everything does just feel a little bit different. Shapes, positions, hulls, things like that. You need to tweak things slightly because you're not always as maneuverable as you once were.
No, your shape and the makeup of your body during that period does change a little bit, doesn't it?
It does, and I think I've never been an overly body conscious person. I always like to look my best, but I've never been sort of like obsessed with I've got to have abs, or I've got my arms have got to look a certain way, or my legs have got to look a certain way, or anything like that. It's always, I think, for me, a bit of a control thing. So, when you are pregnant, your body does just start changing all of these different ways that you have no control over. It is what it is, and it naturally happens to every single woman, regardless of how fit you are. If you do exercise 3-4 times a week, whether you don't do much at all, these changes still happen. But for me, it was just being able to accept it and control it, knowing that I was still keeping my fitness up and things like that. And it really hit me on the flip side first time round, just how much of a belly you're left with. You think once you've had this baby and you've got rid of your big, preggy belly, that it all just goes back to normal, and it really doesn't go back to normal. And it takes a long time to go back to normal. Even when I did get back into training, it sort of knocks your confidence a little bit. But it's absolutely normal. Every woman is in exactly the same situation, regardless of whatever you see celebrities doing. No one springs back like that. And it does take hard work. It does just take doing something on a consistent basis to really build those core muscles that have been challenged so much carrying and birthing a small person, to build those back up again. But once you get there, you're just back to where you were. I think for me, first time around, I'd say it probably took me a good 9-10 months. Okay. To feel I was fully recovered and could then progress my training again to the next level, where I could start increasing the weights and things like that. Yeah. It does just take time.
It does. Now, I can't believe Oscar's 3 because, apart from, because we go back a few years, don't we? And apart from your wedding anniversary being my birthday, which is always going to be a thing, and we're always going to come up every year and remind each other on Facebook and whatnot. But it's, from seeing you guys then, and then we met again because I was doing a boot camp, wasn't I, for postnatal mum. So just flashing back to then, so you've had your first child and you've gone through this, obviously some training before, and then you'd had Oscar. How did it feel? Especially, I'm just trying to relate to anybody that might be listening or watching this that's actually about to, have a child, or is going through pregnancy, or actually may have just had a child and then wanting to get into something. How did that feel, and what was that process like, getting involved in that?
Getting back to training with
and joining the boot camp and and actually pushing yourself again.
It felt strange for me, knowing what I could do before, and things that I would just do without even thinking about it, that I'd do as an easy warm-up. Something became the main part of of the session. Because you do lose that fitness, you do lose that muscle strength once you've had time off, particularly when you've had a baby. So it's just, you've got to be patient with yourself. But it was the best way to start, was just to start back at basic level and just building up each week. And then on the other side, as a mum, coordinating a now household of people. The fact that when we came to Wheelie Fit, just being able to do something, bring Oscar along with me, was just an absolute godsend. Because as a small, I think was a couple of months old. 10 weeks old, I think, when we first started. And I wasn't ready to leave him in any sort of like creche at a gym or anything like that. I didn't want, I wanted him to, he still needed to be near me. He wasn't in any sort of like settled routine or anything like that. Quite often I'd pick him up and do a few squats, just set him down, a bit of power walking with the pram. He's having a little bit of a whingy moment, and just been able to involve him in that. So time for me without having to sacrifice anything for him was an absolute godsend. And that's why here in the studio, I always welcome mums to bring their little ones down. Any preschool children, come down. The studio's plenty big enough. They're never far away. I've got a little corner of little things to keep them occupied.
I love it.
If they're having a whingy moment, we simply just get them involved, or we take a moment out. It's absolutely fine. But carving that time out for yourself as a new mum, when again, everything is out of your control because you're dictated to by this small person that demands food at this time or a nappy change at that time. Just being able to carve that time out for you, but still include them, I think is really important.
I know, that's incredible. And I know sometimes, now I haven't had a child, nor am I female, nor have me and my partner had a child either. But so this is just purely my view from working with people and knowing yourself and whatnot. Was there a time, or do you ever think it's a real thing, that when you've had, especially your first child, I can imagine it might be a little bit stronger, you feel like you then become mum, and do you then start to lose who you were before? 100%. Have you had any feelings on that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. Again, I think I know certainly first time round, I was a little bit, not naive, but you can't imagine what life is like with a child until you have had a child. And it's the sleepless nights, not getting, a full night of sleep, just walking around like, I think quite often hear the term exhausted pigeon is definitely that. And everything that you used to do without even thinking about it, just, catch up with my friends here, or we'll just go out, on date night with your other half, and all of that is just taken away from you. Everything has to be considered and planned, both in time and financially, money as well. You've got to provide for baby, and they need nappies and they need clothes and they need formula and all of this stuff. So everything that you do has to be considered, and as soon as that baby is born, they are 100% your priority. You are very much second or third place in that household. So the mum hat goes on, and that's it. I don't think it ever comes off. Even when from what my mum says, even when you're 36, you're always a mum. You never stop living. You always put your kids first, and that's obviously how it always should be. But over time, you gradually manage to find that balance, and I get a little bit more opportunity to switch the hats for an hour here and there between being wife, being Sally, being PT, being mum. Very much a juggling act.
No, I can imagine. And I just wanted to explore that a little bit because, it's very easy, and sometimes when I'm coaching, when I'm speaking with people and having these conversations, it's, you can get yourself wrapped up in that world, and actually, so occasions where maybe you might go on a night out with some friends and maybe leave your child with your partner or something like that, and actually that can be quite difficult to transition into, actually perhaps not necessarily not worrying, but not making that the forefront and actually trying to enjoy yourself as you. Did you feel that?
It's hard to switch off, I think, because even even as they get older, like, you know, Oscar's in a really good bedtime routine now and everything like that. But even still, you can't help but know that at 7 o'clock he's going to bed, or he's having a bath at this time. Is he all right? You know, living in with my husband, if I did go out with, you know, the girls or whatever, it's just like, has he remembered to do this? Has he remembered to do that? Because so much of what you do is just autopilot.
Yeah.
Then trying to remember to explain all of that to somebody else to do the same thing, even though it sounds really basic, it's not. So trying to just actually have time to switch off and focus on something else is really difficult. You always want to check your phone. You're like, oh, I'll send a quick message just to make sure they're all right, or, you know, did Oscar go down to bed all right? And yeah, it's very, very difficult to switch off. I'm just smirking because I'm going to tell you a funny story. It happened, I think it was last year actually. No, I can't remember. Must have been last year. I think it was during like the lockdown easing phase of last year.
Yeah.
If I'd been this image when we went out for our anniversary. Anyway, whenever it was, Oscar was with my mum. And it got to like, he goes to bed at 7 o'clock, so it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock. I messaged her, you know, did Oscar get to sleep all right? And she's like, no, it's been absolutely horrendous. He wouldn't have a bath, he wouldn't eat his tea, he wouldn't do this, that, and the other. But an absolute nightmare with him. But hope you're having a nice night. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, that's so unlike you. Is he all right? And you just go to sheer panic. And then my mum, I replied to my mum all of this, and she was just like, only joking, he's absolutely fine as always. Stop worrying, enjoy your night. I was just like, I can't believe you've done that to me. But I've never messaged her again since.
Yes.
I just accept that whatever it will be, and she made an offer her own back if it's not good, if he's not having a good night. So I kind of needed that little bit of a
yeah.
kick. But at the time I was like, oh, what?
Well, I can imagine. I was just going to say, actually, was there anything that that helped you? You know, are there any tips you can think of, things that helped you make that transition or worry less? And I suppose that one is a perfect example of, well, actually, if there's anything really wrong, my mum's going to message me anyway.
Exactly.
So silence is golden, I suppose, in that respect, isn't it? Is there anything else that you might have done at the time, or is there any, you know, tips or tricks you can remember? I appreciate we're going back a little bit now, but you maybe, you know, putting you on the spot.
I know you are. I can't think of anything particular, really. So I'm very lucky that, you know, my parents live close, they're just down the road, and they've always been involved with Oscar, and they're generally the only people that would have him if we were, you know, to go out. So they were quite familiar with his routine anyway. So I suppose we did have a bit of a trial run, sort of like mum would come over and help with the bedtime routine, so she understood the bedtime routine. So whoever it is, if you know you're needing to get someone to look after the little ones for whatever reason, if you have the chance beforehand to just get them to come around and make sure that they see what you do, I think it's easier than trying to have to remember and download your mummy brain 5 minutes before you want to go out and switch off. I think it gives you that little bit of confidence that they've seen it, they know what it can be like, and it just helps you just ease into it a little bit.
And I suppose doing that, because that's a great tip, and I suppose doing that is a good way to help you understand or set that expectation that it's going to be done the same ways that you would. Yeah. Because sometimes it's the other person you may well trust doing it, but are they going to do it differently? You know, and how will it feel?
A lot can be lost in translation as well. If you're like writing notes down or leaving, you know, instructions, whatever, a lot of it can be miscommunicated, lost in translation. And I think it also helps, you know, from Oscar's perspective, it would help Oscar knowing that that person has done bedtime with him before or has done bath time with him before. So it probably puts Oscar at ease knowing who that person is and that they're, you know, they've already been involved a couple of times before, for example, and just makes for a smoother transition, I think.
Yes, no, I can completely see that.
And one other thing I would say as well is it's quite easy to feel guilty for not feeling guilty. You feel like you should go out and you should have all this feeling of anxiety leaving your child. And certainly a couple of times when we only went out locally, we were never too far away, I didn't have that anxious feeling. We were only going out for a few hours, but I also at the same time felt guilty for not feeling guilty. I was like, I feel bad that I'm not this like really anxious wreck, you know, but that's okay if you know they're in safe hands.
Yes.
It's absolutely fine to feel like, don't feel that you have to be this like on edge or worrying about things. If you're not worrying about stuff, then brilliant, because whoever's looking after your child, you trust 1,000,000%, and that's absolutely fine too.
And it's letting that trust and that confidence in your decision then be the thing that settles your mind, so that you can then focus on, on something for you. And start to, like you say, juggle those hats, but then give yourself some time where you're actually only wearing one, as opposed to wearing, 2 or 3, or just keeping the mummy one on and then sticking the other one on backwards. But yeah, one thing I was wondering, because you are now going through with child number 2, which is amazing. Is there anything that you're going to do differently, knowing what you know from time number 1?
I think one thing that I definitely learned from going through it first time round was just relax, just chill out. Don't worry too much about, oh, they should be in this routine by now, they should be doing this by now, or just go with the flow a little bit more. Because generally when you do, you get a better outcome from your child if you're more relaxed with them. If they're having a bit of a whinge moment for whatever reason, like, you go through all the tick boxes, they're not hungry, they've just been changed, they've sort of napped, but they're just still crying. Just don't worry about it. If you know as a mum, your own maternal instinct that they are okay, they're just being whingy, then that's fine. Just be chilled out about it, and you bounce around with them, and eventually they'll settle. But I think the more panicky and uptight you get about it, they vibe off that at the same time. And they get a little bit more, you're getting a bit cranky, and I'm a bit cranky, and it's all just a bit but I think if you can just calm yourself down, it does rush off on Oscar. Not all of the time, particularly when but I think that'd be the best thing, just to go with the flow. I think particularly with baby number 2, I'm going to have to be more like that, because I've got Oscar to look after as well. Like, when I only had him, everything revolved around him. So he would nap when he wanted to nap. He would feed when he wanted to feed. But if baby needs a nap and I need to go pick Oscar up from nursery, then I'm going to try and somehow coordinate the two together. And if they have to wait a little bit longer for the nap, that's fine. If they have to wait an extra 5 minutes to be fed, it's not going to kill them. They'll be absolutely fine. They're just going to wait an extra 5 minutes. Or if I can't get Oscar, so I'm having a really bad time with baby, not feeling bad at asking my mum to go pick him up or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? I think this time around I've got to be much more chilled out and go with the flow with things. And that's what advice I've had from other mummy friends that are going through, I have recently in the last sort of 12 months, gone through the same thing with a child similar age to Oscar, and then second one into the family as well. So they were just like, just go with the flow. All the things you worried about first time round, so insignificant second time around, you're like, God, why did I ever worry about that for? So that's definitely the big thing to take forward this time.
I think that there's something incredibly powerful in that as well, and it's something that I'm really, really passionate about in what I do, and it's that feeling of, if you're doing things to enable yourself to be the best you can be, then it's going to have a positive influence on everyone and everything around you. So
it really does.
Like you've just said, if you know baby and Oscar aren't going to be harmed by doing things slightly differently, but it'll enable you to stay calm, then actually the experience for them to see you calm, like you say, they vibe off that as well.
Definitely.
But also you feel a lot calmer about it, a lot more organized about it, and just realizing that you can be flexible with that just puts you back in control. And I can only see that as something that will help, especially when you've mentioned things like mental health, or and all the other, because it is an emotional period, and I know obviously it affects hormones and all that, but the better prepared, and I suppose the better foundations you've got in terms of the expectations on yourself and what you expect yourself to be able to do, then the frustration levels are going to be less. Not perfect, because at the end of the day, children, baby, always going to throw little curveballs at you.
Oh yes, they certainly like to do that. But I think definitely, it's the age you're saying, happy mum, happy baby, and that sounds so flippant and so easy. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna be happy, and my baby will be happy, and it's not like that. I'm not saying it in a flippant way whatsoever. When you're absolutely wiped out. You've had all of about 3 hours broken sleep.
Yeah.
And you've got a baby that's been crying at you for the last however long, and no matter what you do, it's not good enough. Like, it's not an easy thing to just go, yeah, I'm just gonna be happy, I'm just gonna be chilled. But if you can just get to that place, just take a few deep breaths, you know, whatever it is you need to do, just at that split second, just think, right, okay, I'm going to change this situation around, and that starts with me, I think is definitely very powerful.
Ooh, that's powerful. That message itself is powerful. I'm going to frame that. I was going to say I'm going to record it, but we're recording this anyway, so that's nothing.
But I think I'm going off on a tangent now. But one thing I've learned in life, aside from being a mum, aside from being a trainer, is life is very much 10% what happens and 90% what you choose to do with it. And when that concept was first given to me, I was just like, what? I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all. And everyone is going to, whether you're a mother, father or not, everyone goes through challenging times in their life where you are completely and utterly out of your comfort zone and you don't have a clue what's going on. You feel like you do feel like you're out of control.
Yeah.
But just taking that second, or just taking that time to think, right, okay, this is crap what's happening right now, or I'm really just not in a good place. But just trying to take that time just to think, right, there's only me that can change this. I am in control of this situation. Whether I like it or not, I am in control of what happens next.
Yes.
And trying to formulate step by step something that flips the coin back in your favour to get you back into a good place, I think is something I've definitely learned over the years, through work, through motherhood, through everything.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know, you come across it so much, don't you, where something that's completely out of your control. So essentially we call that reality. So the thing has happened and maybe it will continue to happen. And like you say, it's looking at a different way. I like to call it reframing. And one of the things I like to speak to people about is actually how you see it. And you're right, 90% of the sensation and the feelings that we have around events or things that happen is the way that we receive the information, how we process it, and then how that makes us feel. And I suppose an extreme case of that is, you know, people that struggle to show emotion, or people that something can happen to, but they stay dead calm.
Yeah.
You know, and they're the people that might be a natural balance for them. You know, but you know, one event could happen, yet 4 different people see it in 4 different ways. 4 different people are affected in 4 different ways. So again, I think part of it, quite rightly what you said, and just going back to what I said, was it's the expectation of what you think you are able and how well you are able to do based on that circumstance. Are you able to still, you know, work as much because, you know, for example, your child is not very well? No, you're not able to. So what are you able to do that's going to, you know, that's going to put you in the best position and keep everyone else safe and you know, and happy? And that should be the goal. And then once you've done that, it's not about expecting yourself to be able to still do a full week's work, because that's always going to lead to frustration. It's always going to lead to a negative, you know, result, isn't it?
And it will lead to burnout eventually. And I learned that one the hard way as well, going back to work after having Oscar.
Did you?
But I was adamant I was going back to work, super career driven, sales job, went back working full time, went back to work in March. By November, absolutely burnt out, signed off sick. And I was just at my absolute lowest. But that is one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because it gave me the chance to really look at my entire whole world, my family, me, my mental health, everything, and looking at what was going to be best going forward. Was that going back to the job that I was doing, maybe in different hours, or was the time right to then flip and do something else? And that's what led me to be here. So
all those little stepping stones, and something that's quite catastrophic at the time, and you know, no doubt will have caused you all sorts of challenges, you've then turned on its head, use that as an opportunity to look at what was going to be right for you, and look at you now.
absolutely. And one thing from a motherhood or from a mummy perspective is I realised, particularly with lockdown last year, I felt I was gifted back the time that I had lost with Oscar. So I went back to work full time, although he was having a whale of a time at his grandma's or at nursery or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
The weekends, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And I felt like that whole period of time, that 9 months I was back working full time, to me now is an absolute blur. I feel like I've missed out on so much of his life and his development.
Yeah.
And I was actually almost, no one wanted lockdown, obviously. But what it did give me was that time back with Oscar, to spend time with him and to really see those changes that happen on a daily, weekly basis.
Yeah.
You miss if you're not there. And he's going to school in September next year.
It's crazy.
Like, wow, that time is just like he's stepping up doing extra days at nursery now. Now he's in preschool. I'm just like, wow, where has that time gone?
Yeah.
He's going to go to school. I'm going to miss him like crazy. And that time does just go so fast. So again, that'd be another thing, you know, moving forward with baby number 2, is just cherish that time to really just go in the blink of an eye. Once they're at school and then they're, you know, doing their own thing Monday to Friday, that's when you can carve out a little bit more time for you and your career. But just do what you need to do to get by, obviously.
Yeah.
But cherish that time when they are small, because they change so quickly. So quickly.
I think that's a very astute point and going to be extremely valuable. And, you know, as I said before we started recording, the idea of these, you know, I suppose these chats, but these recordings is to, you know, if we can help 1 or 2 people, one person, just give them a little bit of confidence to be able to do something, or something they probably weren't sure about, or just to even, you know, listen to kind of your experience and what you've been through and take something from that. And that's the aim, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I can only talk on my experiences and how my life has been with Oscar and what I've been through in my work life, etc. I'm definitely no super mum. I definitely, you know, messed up like everyone else, and you learn from your mistakes 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, just be kind to yourself and just relax, and you'll be the best mum you can be.
Are there any, so just going back to fitness then,
Okay.
Not that we've gone off on a tangent. I love the fact that these conversations take us in many different ways and places. Are there any myths that you hear or that you thought were true yourself before you were then knowledgeable and trained in personal training and pre and postnatal? Are there any common myths that you would like to debunk now, or, you know, if not that, are there any major tips for somebody that's wanting to be active during pregnancy or after?
I think that the biggest thing for me, sort of a particular myth I had in my head, that I wouldn't be able to lift a weight whilst pregnant.
Yeah.
And certainly first time round, because that was the bulk of my training. That's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed lifting relatively heavy weights. Obviously, you can't go as heavy, but you can still very, very safely continue to lift weights. You're not looking to progress anything. You're not looking to, you know, get any sort of PBs or anything like that. But you can still continue to do that at a challenging level, which, if you're into that sort of thing, is really good. And then I think on the flip side of sort of returning to exercise after you've had baby, is just very much listen to your body and do what you can. So even if you're just walking every day, that's amazing, and you will feel so much better for doing it. You know, while baby's napping, go for, you know, a walk around the block, or take yourself, you know, a little round trip for, you know, an hour or whatever. And that in itself will really help keep you on an even keel, to clear your mind, and help to lose some of that baby weight. I don't like calling it that. I don't know what else to call it. It's just, it is what it is. The leftover bits that no one likes. That will all help to help you get back to what you were before baby. And same with the nutritional point of view as well. When you're tired, you're sleep deprived, you just, eating is for survival. So don't worry if you're not eating the best, most healthiest diet ever. Being hungry and starving yourself is the absolute worst thing you can do, because that doesn't help you emotionally. You're not going to be in any position to deal with whatever baby throws at you that day if you're starving. So if you have a bit more cake than normal, do you know what? For right now, that's fine. You know, you can have your healthy meals planned, you know, try and plan in advance where you can, but sometimes it just is what it is.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think especially when you said the baby weight, so I just wanted to just come back to that very quickly, because actually when you're pregnant, you're then feeding another life, and you need more calories in there to be able to do that, sustain both lives as the baby then grows. And then afterwards, especially if you're breastfeeding, etc., there's going to be more calories needed to be able to produce and go through all these things. So when we talk about baby weight, then yes, there are some people that do snap back, or whatever we want to call it. You know, we see these pictures that are probably edited and stuff anyway, but for anyone that actually you're left with, we'll keep calling it baby weight, because I don't think it's an offensive term, but what that is that's the result of you providing yourself with the necessary calories to be able to facilitate, like you said, a good place mentally, but also to be able to facilitate, you know, the growth of a small human inside you, and then afterwards, you know, provide for that. So it's the byproduct of a healthy process, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's why you shouldn't be too harsh on yourself that, you know, your friend down the street has lost it all already and you're still struggling. Everyone is different. That's why it's just genetics. We're all completely different people. That's what makes us who we are. And that is absolutely fine. You do absolutely need the nutrition in you to be able, if you're breastfeeding particularly, obviously, to feed child and help them thrive as well. And on the pregnancy side of things, you know, the whole eating for two thing, you don't really need to eat for two. I think it's about an extra 200 calories a day you actually need to help sustain baby. Being honest, I've always sort of roughly tracked my calories each day. As soon as you find out you're pregnant, out the window, because particularly those first few weeks, it's anything that you can keep down is fine. I think I lived on Weetabix and crumpets pretty much for the first.
There are worse choices.
All the carbs, which is absolutely fine. Like if you read any sort of, you know, pregnancy nutrition thing, obviously you want to keep balance. You want to make sure you're eating your fruit and your veg. You know, if you need all of those good nutrients. But a lot of it is just, particularly the first trimester, let's say the first 12 weeks, it's just keeping down whatever you can keep down.
Whatever you can stomach,
and then now I'm feeling a little bit better. I can start focusing more on making sure I'm getting good, balanced, healthy meals. Now that sickness part has passed a little bit.
Yes. And I think the fact that you're here talking to us, so thank you very much for your time again. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
But it's really good to point out that actually there might be, you know, there are people out there, and it might be somebody watching now that doesn't really have experience in, they might not have exercised much, or they might not have gone to a gym, but there are professionals out there that are trained to be able to help and give you advice on that.
Absolutely.
In terms of nutrition, in terms of exercising. Now, we know that if you know, were very sedentary before pregnancy, then a massive change in exercise routine can have its negative sides. So, you know, it is important to speak to somebody, but there are people out there that, you know, and this is what they do, like yourself. And neatly, almost like I planned it, if anyone did want to get in contact with you, one, is that okay? And two, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
That is 100% always okay. Drop me a message about anything you're not sure about, anything like, oh, I've heard this, but is that true? Or, you know, just a little bit of advice of, you know, where you're at now, trying to get started, or, you know, where you want to be. Drop me a message. You can get me on Facebook. I'm at Starfit. Instagram, I'm at Starfit_20_. So you can drop me, jump onto those pages, hit the message button, send me a DM. That's absolutely fine. Or you can drop me an email, which is sally@star-fit.co.uk.
All very well branded. Starfit. It's great, isn't it? Well, thank you very, very much for your time today, Sally. Really do appreciate it. I know you've got a busy schedule and you're currently growing a baby, so there's all sorts of things going on. So just carving out that time has been really, really important.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. Like I say, happy to help anybody, anytime, with anything PT related or pregnancy, and postnatally either.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Wow, wasn't that amazing? I think me and Sally could have spoke for hours then. But wonderful. If you've got any questions, please get in touch with her. So there was Instagram, there was an email address on there. And if you want to find out a little bit more about what I do, so I'm a coach and a personal trainer as well. But my website is www.imdoingitfor.me. Okay, and you can see loads of stuff on there, a little bit of background. And also, if you've got any questions on fitness or anything else, or if you've got your own challenges and you want to see if you've got a unique view on how you can help get through that, or even if you want to work together a little bit more structured so it can get you further towards where you want to be in life, then just get in touch. But thank you again for listening, for watching, and don't forget to check out the other episodes that are available on the YouTube channel. And also, if you want to listen instead, they're all on Spotify or Anchor FM under the Superhero Finder. See you later and stay super.